Hey guys and gals, what's up? BN back again here for literally just a must-watch video if you are considering jumping at all, regardless if you're a new player or a veteran player. Before we start, I want to say that I have done a full walkthrough video on what it's like to jump from creating a new account on day 1, Kingdom 1, all the way through a week after you land in Final Kingdom, which is putting you at about anywhere from 16 to 17 days, give or take. And so I walk you through that entire process and show you what to do at each day and at each stage, depending on the kingdom you're in. I'll have that in the description video down below. Let's dive right in to the truth about jumping, the pros and cons, the FAQs, the do's and don'ts. Let's start with number 1. What is the point of jumping? The point of jumping is to farm resources on a new account and utilize beginner teleports to allow for you to farm one kingdom, farm a second kingdom, and then eventually land in your third and final kingdom at a higher power level than someone who just started. To give you an example, the average power I would say that someone who's active on their account, if you are able to farm all villages, some caves, and doing that for each of the first 2 kingdoms, along with unfogging the second kingdom at 100%, you will probably be able to be anywhere from, I'd say, 300 to 350k power. This is a give or take average, right, based on the current landscape of the game, features, and what you're currently capable of doing as a pure free-to-play player. Now, going in, outside of doing villages and caves in the first kingdom, you'll also have a chance to possibly get KVK Alliance rewards, right? And we'll talk about this in point number 5, but some of those will be, for example, you'll be able to get Final Curtain, which is a reward you can get from joining a couple days before the KVK season ends, and then also Crusader achievement rewards that you can get from the kingdom and the alliance as well. And then lastly, there's also the possibility of getting honor rewards as well. These are just additional rewards from you being able to join a top 50 alliance at the end of KVK and being in there until the end. Now, with that out of the way, right, let's talk about the different types of jumps that you may come across, right? So I'm just going to go ahead, and I think I have to scroll down here a little bit, but I'm just going to show this one jumper ad channel. These are some types of jumper ads that you'll see. There's a bunch of servers that have a jumper ads channel where you can find jumper groups to join. We'll show off a couple of these ads, and it's really important to be able to discern the difference between what type of group you want to join, right? All these groups here are probably ranging anywhere from 1 to 2 alliances at the low end, up to 6 to 12 alliances maybe at the high end, right, that they want to try and have going into Final Kingdom. What's usually the typical is that it's usually somewhere between 2 and 6 alliances at most, which is anywhere between 100 and 300 players that most groups are usually looking for. But what's important is not necessarily the amount of players they have, right? It's really, what are their kingdom goals? How is their hierarchy set up, right, from top down? What are they offering you? And then the recommendation there is join a couple groups, right? Especially if you have time and there's a couple weeks or there's a couple days out before the groups jump. Join a couple groups for that block. And then pay attention to the announcements they post, what are they actually doing for the players, and really take some time to do your due diligence and some research, right? Do some product comparison or group comparisons, right, to get a better idea on what you're looking for, and does this group or does another group maybe fit you better than another. And then let me go into number 3, which is realistic expectations, do's and don'ts. This is something that, in my experience, I've never seen this in a jumper ad, right? Which, at least from my experience so far, which is from when I started doing stuff in April of this year. And this does not mean that this is something that no one has ever done. I've just never seen it. Which is, 1, putting in your ads, which is something we'll be doing when we start our new project. I'll have some information on that later in the video, is telling people that you should not spend money until you get to a certain point in the Final Kingdom, and also that restarts are possible. This is a common misconception when you're joining a jumper group. A lot of players, from my experience, come into jumper groups as, this is my one and only jumper group, and it's do or die, we have to make it work, and when we land in Final Kingdom, I'm going to give my all, and I'm not thinking that anything else can possibly happen. This is the wrong mindset to have when you're joining a jumping group. And I'm going to explain from a couple reasons. Number 1, the reason why we tell people not to spend, or the reason why all jumper groups should tell players not to spend up until Zone 2, if not at least a week or 2 weeks into the kingdom, is because you have no idea what's going to happen in the Final Kingdom. When you join a jumper group, I will tell you, you are playing Russian roulette. You don't know what you're going to get. And specifically, you don't know what you're going to get in Final Kingdom, right? You can have the most professional, the most organized jumper group. Everyone can think you are the best thing since sliced bread, right? Or your group is the best thing since sliced bread, right? People can have extremely high expectations, but it doesn't matter because you still don't know what you're going to get when you land in Final Kingdom. And there's some, and I will list some things, that is not everything, but are some of the more common things you may find that would cause you to rethink spending or to consider restarting earlier than later with your group. Some of those include running into a rogue whale or multiple rogue whales. These are players that are spending thousands of dollars a month, maybe up to 10, 20, 30 grand a month. I've seen it. Other people have seen it happen. And depending on that player's intent, they might just want to go around and zero players. Maybe they just want to have fun and go attack, ruin a kingdom. Maybe they don't show their true intentions right away, but then they show it a month, 2, 3 months into the game. And they'll start doing that. They just make it impossible to establish the kingdom because you just either don't have the ability or capacity to do anything about them with how early it is, especially if you don't have any spenders yourself. Things can be made very difficult in those situations. You could run into a group of players that are just high spenders, right? They're not maybe enough for a full alliance, but they can still cause some damage, and they just kind of have ill intentions, right? Or just not the best intentions. Or they just have their own intentions that just don't align with yours, better yet. You could also run into a full alliance of spenders, whether it's anywhere from low to high, and they just want to be the number one alliance. They don't care about your structure. They don't care about your goals. You could see 2 alliances do that, right? And typically we refer to these kingdoms as kind of in the making of mega alliance style kingdoms, whether it's 1 or 2 at the top. You'll find that if you have played Rock for a while, there's quite a few kingdoms that run this type of hierarchy status when it comes to alliances. They basically top load players into 1 or 2 alliances when KVK comes, and they just typically always have 1 or 2 alliances that are just a lot of power above the rest. These are a couple examples, along with you could have other jump groups that join your Final Kingdom as well. Other groups might be diplomatic and they might want to work together. Others might just want to run and manage the kingdom themselves, right? And be kind of the governing body in whatever capacity that is. So some can be aggressive and some cannot. These are just some, and anything in between can really happen. And this is why we advise people not to spend until you know that your group is good to go with following through on what your group's goals are, and that you know your group's goals can be met in the Final Kingdom. If they cannot, that's why we say don't spend, wait until you get the go-ahead from your group lead, or for whomever's doing announcements. In addition, this is why restarts are also basically almost required at a certain point. And the expectation is that if you come into a kingdom and within the first week or 2, you just see that there's no way that your group's goals that you have set for them are going to be achievable, then restart, right? That should be your immediate first thought, is let's restart. Because if you set all the appropriate expectations, then you're mitigating the amount of people that 1, have spent, and then 2, are coming in with extremely high over-the-top expectations on what it's going to be like, right? Whether it's their first or however many number accounts or jumps that they've done. The number 4 thing here is drop-off, right? This comes into general activity. And you're going to have drop-off no matter what. I'll give you the example of in my first project, we recruited 800 players in 2 weeks. We had about 450 of those players that jumped with us day 1, and then we had about 350 to 375 that made it all the way to the Final Kingdom with us. Even though we sorted all these players, we initially placed them, right, there is no guarantee that player activity is going to be at a 1-to-1 ratio. Right, especially even when you get to Final Kingdom. You're going to have drop-off from players that start out playing the game day 1, they just drop off for whatever reason. You'll have players that just aren't able to be as active as they thought they were, so they feel like they're not going to get the most out of the 10-day or 9-day jump period. Those people drop off. You'll have people, some players might not be able to get KVK Alliance rewards because they think that's the only thing that matters in Rock when you're starting a new account. Those people might drop off. You might have some people that weren't able to get in for KVK Alliance rewards, even though you were able to get in for some. Those people drop off. You'll have people in Second Kingdom that are just realizing, wow, I have to clear all this fog, I'll drop off. Maybe they weren't able to clear the fog all the way, or 50% of the way, I'll drop off. And then you'll get to Third Kingdom, and you'll see players that are like, I really wasn't able to max my account out as best I could. Let me go join another jumper group, because now I have more information and more knowledge and experience. I'll drop off. Then you'll have some people that just don't consistently keep up with the account. They'll drop off. There's a lot of reasons why players would drop off, but it happens every jump without any thought at all, whether it's rational or not rational, however you want to view it. It's just an expectation to have. That is going to happen. And then you're going to have KVK Alliance rewards, right? I know we talked about this a little bit before, but let me just hammer this point home, which that it is not a must. Your group will not succeed or fail based on whether or not you're able to get specific Alliance rewards in KVK, because you're already going to get other rewards anyways. It is an icing on the cake and should not be viewed as the death of your alliance or the death of your jump group if you can't get them. Keep it pushing, pimpin'. Number 5 is show respect when you go into a KVK winning kingdom. Do not spam people in kingdom chat. Do not spam message players and alliances asking them to join, because the only thing that's going to do is tell them not to accept you. Look at it from the other person's perspective. If I'm constantly getting bombarded with messages in kingdom chat, DMs, personal chat messages, mails, why would I let you in? You're just being annoying at that point, right? And you're just being disrespectful and unprofessional. Now, keep in mind, not every group is going to be able to stop or to, well, I guess better yet, I'll just say stop for lack of better words, stop players from doing it, right? There's always going to be those guys or those people in general, right, to give a gender neutral answer. There's always going to be some players that will just do it no matter what. It is unfortunate, but it is an expectation to have coming in. You're not going to be able to mitigate all of it. But by prepping and doing these things earlier rather than later, you can help. The last point I think I'll make is number 6, is this is just kind of about failing or succeeding jumps. I personally do not categorize jumps as failing if you run into immovable circumstances, situations, or obstacles. I consider jumps failing if your group's leadership, your governing body, is failing you through their decisions that are outright affecting the development of your group in that kingdom. If they're making decisions for your group that are literally something that no one agrees with, then okay, you're failing your jump at that point, and then you probably have failed it depending on how it goes. But if you're making decisions that are, just bad for your group in any capacity, right, that is lowering your group's presence, or again, that anyone doesn't agree with, right, that's something a little bit more along the lines that I would classify as a fail. If you have to restart a project, that's not a fail, especially if it's for the right reasons. And really for anything kind of in between. I find a lot of times that players will blanket label things as success or fail, and typically they'll label things as fails all too often when a restart is required, or just when they restart in general. This is a blasphemous misconception on the reality of jumping groups. And anyone who says that or makes a claim, a blanket statement about that, I would just say that you probably have never organized a group before, or you just have the most unrealistic, high prima donna expectations about what you should have had happen in the group you were in. But I do hope that this video at least helps clarify some of those things. And I'm about 13 minutes, which is about 2 minutes less than my last recording, so I'm extremely happy about that. The last thing I'll leave everyone with is that we are starting our own jumper project again, and we're going to be aiming for the kind of early January, the New Year block. So if anyone's interested in checking out our server, if you're interested in checking out our jump, or just wanting some helpful jumping information, even if you're just coming by to take a peek, you're more than welcome. I'll have a link to our Discord server in the description down below as well. And I hope that this really helps set great expectations for players coming in to jumper groups, and what you should be trying to look for in some of the groups as well. With that being said, I'm out. Catch you later.